She had everything: the title, the crown, the palace, the military honors, the constitutional legitimacy. The brooch that once belonged to Queen Elizabeth herself pinned to her chest. The salute of Britain's most elite soldiers bowing before her at Buckingham Palace. On June 9, 2026, Camilla stood before the Grenadier Guards, the most senior foot regiment of the entire household division, and commanded their salute. This was the role stripped from Prince Andrew in disgrace back in 2022, and here was Camilla standing in it, flawlessly, deliberately, radiating the kind of composed institutional authority that takes decades to construct. It was supposed to look like the ultimate victory lap. 50 years of being called the most hated woman in Britain. 50 years of being the uninvited outsider, the shadowy figure in the periphery of every Windsor family photograph. And now this, the absolute zenith of a climb that most people said was impossible. But here is what nobody is saying loudly enough about that ceremony. Camilla was standing on a trapdoor, and she knew it. Every person inside that palace knew it, because the signals coming from William's direction are not subtle anymore. And the question is no longer whether Camilla's era ends. The question is how fast. Welcome to the Marquee Report. Let's get into every detail of the royal power shift that is already underway. To understand what is happening to Camilla right now, you need to understand that power inside the British monarchy operates on two completely separate currencies. The first is constitutional legitimacy, the formal stuff. Titles, roles, military appointments, legal standing. The things that can be granted by a monarch and recorded in official documents. Camilla has that in extraordinary abundance. Charles has given her everything he possibly can. He has made absolutely sure that on paper her position is unassailable. The second currency is public adoration, and this is the one that has been frustratingly persistently out of her reach for the entire duration of her time in the royal family. The public has accepted Camilla. They have tolerated her. They have intellectually processed that she is the queen now, and that is simply how it is. But they have never emotionally embraced her. Not the way they embraced Diana, not the way they embraced Catherine. The acceptance is cold, transactional, born out of respect for Charles rather than genuine warmth for the woman beside him. And that distinction matters more than almost anything else in this analysis, because it means Camilla has zero permanent political capital of her own. She cannot afford a single significant misstep. She cannot afford a public relations crisis. She cannot afford even a sustained period of perceived weakness because there is no reservoir of public goodwill to draw from when things go wrong. Her power is a highly managed construction, and everyone involved in managing it understands exactly how fragile that construction actually is. Here is the part that haunts Camilla behind closed doors, the part that makes every ceremony feel less like triumph and more like desperate anchoring. Camilla ascended alongside a king who was already in his mid-70s. This was never going to be a 7-decade defining reign like Elizabeth's. It was always going to be a bridge, a transitional chapter between the era of one monarch and the inevitable era of another. And Camilla's entire position, every title, every military appointment, every honor, every moment of institutional authority is tied to the heartbeat of one man. The moment that bond is severed by mortality, her institutional armor does not fade gradually. It vanishes instantly. She moves from reigning queen to dowager queen, a title that strips her active constitutional role, her command over prestigious military regiments, and her central position on the global stage. Everything she was standing there accepting the salute for in June 2026, gone. Every minor health concern about Charles carries weight it would not carry for a younger monarch. Every visible sign of fatigue, every rumor about the king's pace or stamina, each one signals a potential sudden end to her golden era. That is not paranoia. That is an accurate reading of how the institution she fought 50 years to enter actually works. She is not building a legacy. She is defending a temporary fortress. And there is a profound difference between those two things. A builder thinks in decades. A defender thinks about what happens next Tuesday if something goes wrong. Watch Camilla's public appearances through that lens, and the precision becomes visible. The absolute absence of relaxation. The way every ceremonial moment must be executed flawlessly. Not because she is vain, because there is no cushion underneath her if she stumbles. Now let's talk about the clock that is ticking even faster than the biological one. Because William and Catherine represent something that nobody inside Camilla's circle is comfortable discussing openly. They do not have to do anything to undermine her. That is almost the most unsettling part. They do not need to plot or maneuver or take deliberate action against Camilla's position. Their mere existence, their effortless star power, their organic unearned connection with the public, naturally pulls attention and relevance away from the current queen without anyone having to try. The contrast between Camilla and Catherine is genuinely brutal when you lay it out honestly. Camilla's journey to the throne was a grueling defensive campaign that required decades of careful navigation just to achieve basic public tolerance. She survived being labeled the most hated woman in Britain. She endured years of being described as the woman who destroyed the fairy tale. She spent enormous reserves of patience and discipline dismantling the compromise that she would only ever be princess consort. She earned begrudging tolerance through sheer endurance. Catherine entered the royal family already beloved. She has spent her years cultivating an image of modern, flawless devotion that commands genuine global adoration. When Catherine steps into the public eye, she does not need ancient military titles or elaborate state rituals to assert her legitimacy. Her power is intrinsic, generated by an authentic emotional bond with millions of people who genuinely care about her. So when both women appear at events, the international media narrative gravitates toward the Princess of Wales automatically. Camilla gets relegated to a secondary position on her own stage. Not because of conspiracy, not because of unfairness, just because Catherine is more compelling to the public, and the cameras follow what the public finds compelling. Camilla knows this. She is smart enough to read the room, and the awareness that Catherine's effortless perfection will eventually render her hard-fought legacy completely irrelevant, that she will be cast as a historical footnote between the iconic eras of Diana and Catherine, has to be a source of genuine, underlying dread. Here is the signal that defines everything happening right now. William is not waiting passively. He has clear ideas about what a modern streamlined monarchy looks like, and Camilla has to be acutely aware that William's vision for the House of Windsor may not include a significant place for her or the Parker Bowles branch of her family. Charles has done everything in his power to weave Camilla and her connections into the periphery of royal life. He has granted her every constitutional tool available to a consort. He has publicly and consistently backed her position. But William's ascension, which could happen at any time given Charles's age and health, will bring an entirely different set of priorities. The moment William becomes king, the institutional protection Camilla currently enjoys dissolves. The power dynamic shifts completely into the hands of a man who carries the complicated history of his mother Diana, not as a grudge necessarily, but as an unavoidable part of who he is and how he sees the monarchy he will one day lead. His vision will center his wife and his children. His priorities will shape what the institution values and who it elevates. That is not cruelty. That is simply how succession has always worked. But for Camilla, who spent 50 years fighting to get inside the inner circle, the knowledge that her position will be systematically downgraded the moment her husband is no longer king must function as a constant underlying awareness that never fully leaves. Now go back to that image from June 9th, 2026. Camilla in front of the Grenadier Guards, the Queen's brooch, the consecration of the new colors, Britain's finest soldiers bowing before her. Through the official lens, it is the ultimate declaration of permanent status, the culmination of an extraordinary climb. The visual proof that she has arrived at exactly the position she was told she could never occupy. Through a different lens, it is something else entirely. It is a calculated effort to anchor herself so deeply into the fabric of the state that she cannot be easily erased when the transition occurs. A strategy built around securing quick, visible victories that reinforce her legitimacy in the present precisely because the future is so uncertain. She cannot pass any of this standing to her biological children from the Parker Bowles line. The future belongs to the direct bloodline descendants, William and Catherine's children, the younger royals with clean slates and Windsor blood, who carry none of the toxic historical baggage that defines Camilla's biography. Every ounce of praise directed at that rising generation serves as a cold reminder that she is a custodian of the past, while they are the owners of what comes next. That is the paradox that defines her entire queenship. She has achieved everything. She conquered an institution that once sought to exclude her. She secured the highest title available to a consort. She stood before the Grenadier Guards wearing a dead queen's brooch and accepted the formal salutes of the realm. But vindication is not the same thing as security, and the system she conquered is designed to outlive her. Here is where everything stands in June 2026. Camilla commands the Grenadier Guards. She wears the constitutional legitimacy Charles has built for her piece by piece over decades. She occupies the highest position available to a woman in the British monarchy, and she does all of it with the precision of someone who cannot afford a single mistake because there is no emotional cushion waiting to catch her if she falls. William's signals about the future direction of the monarchy are becoming clearer and less deniable. Catherine's return to full public presence is pulling the global narrative exactly where Camilla's position cannot follow. The younger generation of royals, with their unblemished reputations and direct bloodlines, are growing into exactly the fresh faces the institution will need when this transitional chapter ends. The Grenadier Guards ceremony will be remembered as the definitive visual of her reign, a moment of supreme institutional validation shadowed by an inescapable undercurrent of personal and political vulnerability. The formal salutes provided the highest possible level of systemic vindication, but as the final notes of the military brass faded across the lawns of Buckingham Palace, the grand spectacle could not erase what everyone inside that palace already knows. She is a queen ruling on borrowed time, in a monarchy that is already quietly pivoting toward what comes next, and William's signals are becoming impossible to misread. This has been the Marquee Report. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. See you on the next one.